Who are the favourites to finish in 4th place? Very specific, guys. Okay, so Man United are in 3rd place at the moment, 2 games in hand, a point ahead of Tottenham, who are 4th, believe it or not, despite all the controversies recently, or change, more importantly. So we're going to let Man United sort of sail into the distance.
Slip away
up into the Champions League places. Man United fans, you can be delighted with that. Let's get straight into this. We're going to go through the runners and riders and talk about what could work for them in their favour, what could be difficult for them. Let's start off with 4th place at the moment. Unbelievably, Tottenham Hotspur. Has there ever been a more miserable fan base for a team that's currently in the exact position they would have taken at the start of the season?
No, but it doesn't make sense mathematically how they are still in 4th place. I know games in hand, the season has been a bit strange in terms of different competitions, but the fact that Spurs sit in 4th, it begs belief. And they've gone through such a roller coaster of emotions this season. I don't see how they keep on to 4th place, especially because we don't know who the next manager is going to be. Obviously, they'd love to bring in Nagelsmann and Ryan Mason's in the dugout at the moment. I don't think he's the answer for Spurs' issues at this current moment in time. And so I think they'll slowly slip away. They've got arguably the best striker in the league in Harry Kane. So when you've got somebody like that in your team, anything can happen. And I think he's going to get to close to 30 Premier League goals this season. But the rest of their Spurs side, they're just so uninspiring, so unimpressive. And you look at a player like Son, who's a shadow of his former self. You look at that midfield that gets outplayed in every big game they play. And then you look at the wing-back areas, and Emerson Royale, who was much derided for a lot this season, has come into his own and is injured now. So that just is indicative of where Spurs are this season, and I don't see him finishing in the top 4.
I'll put forward some positivity, guys.
Yeah.
Tottenham fans, and you can debunk them. Okay?
Oh no, because I think I might agree, but I'll try.
So first thing I'll say is, I agree with everything you've said. They're still 4th. So as bad as they've been,
not the end of the season.
First of all, they could get better. There could be a bit of a reprieve because Antonio Conte is not there anymore. That could release the pressure a little bit.
I agree with you on that. I do think there is a sense of relief around Tottenham right now. And there seems to be, from all the media leaks or these kind of things, that people were genuinely unhappy about multiple different things. Individual players had each individual gripe that made it unmanageable in terms of Antonio Conte. Conte had gripes with everything that was happening because he's a success machine and they can't understand anything but that.
Success.
Machine. Yeah. And then on top of that, I think Spurs were sort of dumbfounded by what was happening anyway, because they were sort of, why are you blowing up our season? What are you doing? You know? So everyone was sort of, there's a malaise, should we say, around the club. And I think that cloud is lifted since Conte has left, or since Conte is leaving.
Yeah,
right?
I think the wider direction of the football club is very difficult. The limbo that is there is not healthy at all.
Who pushes it, though, to that next level would be my question. Is Ryan Mason capable?
No.
Is Ryan Mason capable? Is whoever is there, is it Stellini or whoever?
So he's going to be there too. And I guess that's one thing that he seemed to get a good response from that group of players. So that is something. I also would say that obviously going to go through Liverpool, we're going to go through Newcastle, we're going to go through Brighton as well. In terms, again, forget performances for a second. In terms of guaranteed goals...
Yeah.
You have Harry Kane. Harry Kane has 21 goals in 28 games.
Yeah.
He will score goals regardless of how bad you're playing. But surely that's a positive that gives you a chance.
For sure, but they're not. The goals are not good enough to overcome the injuries to Emerson Royale, to Bentancur, to Hugo Lloris. Like, they're just not a very good side. They're here off the back of the will and the strength of Antonio Conte, who is still, to this day, one of the best managers in the world. He got them to 4th last season.
But is it not the will of Harry Kane?
Is it inspired? It's kind of... you can make an argument both ways. I do think there was a combination of the two for a while where it was like they had to have a relationship. And they were forced into it. And it was sort of like, let's make the best of this. He'll be gone at the end of the season. And he's just gone sooner than they thought he would be gone, right? But I think within that, what we are maybe forgetting is there are a few Pokemon in the back pocket of this team now, right? They've been playing with Pikachu, which is Harry Kane, all this time, thinking he's amazing.
Stay with him.
Forgetting that they've got, your sons sitting back there, and other players.
Sonichu.
Yeah, what Pokemon?
Kulusevski.
Charizard. Something like that. Like, he's not quite that high up, but he's Blastoise maybe. But like the point is, he's someone who's been miserable this season. He's clearly quite an emotional player. He's affected by the environment that he's in. He always enjoyed being loved at Tottenham and not having that kind of loving arm that maybe a Pocher created at the club, and then Mourinho was sort of good at just harnessing that a little bit more. The emphasis has gone away from him a little bit. Now maybe the emphasis can go back because the players do have a bit more of a, well, it's our team now. There did feel like a coup kind of vibe Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
And the run-in's not that bad.
And the final thing I would say about Tottenham is, of those players, can they all play better?
Yes.
So in terms of ceiling, I think there can be an improvement.
We have only spoken about the front line, though. I do feel like there's a slight issue in that if you get behind the midfield, it's sort of like, oh no! But Charizard, it's on fire.
Fraser Forster can't play any better.
England's number 3.
like Eric Dyer can't play any better.
That's a lie.
Romero needs the end of the season more than anything.
No, I think they can all play with more freedom, more confidence, less fear.
Maybe. I just wish they had Jed Spence, because I feel like Jed Spence, especially, obviously...
Porro's a good signing.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think he's good. But I do think if they'd have had someone who's a bit more marauding, if they'd had a bit of youthful spirit in there, maybe it could have been offset a little bit. And I'm a fan of Jed Spence anyway.
Okay. We must move on. Liverpool are currently in 6th position.
What's your point?
I'm expecting them to take the spot. I think that everything I've said about Tottenham, I think it could easily happen and Spurs could get around it. But the games that they have in hand would get them to that point. I think the next 3 games are crucial for Liverpool. And I think there might be this horrible feeling, and they don't get actually too many points from this next 3. But off the back of that, they have a really, really lovely run. And we saw it last year. Well, we've seen it in several years. But that a big club with a great squad and great attacking players and actual depth once everyone's fit, they can go on a run. Mm-hmm. They can win 8-9 from here to the end of the season. And I just expect it to occur with them.
The reason I don't think it'll be 8-9 is because the first 3 games of those, however many games they have left, is like the 11, I think, is that they have left, right? Is
Man City,
Chelsea and Arsenal.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I think this will age well. I think the next 3 people are going to go, there's no chance, there's no way. I think they'll get a couple of points out of those 3. Mm-hmm. I think they'll enjoy being the underdog in those 3. I also actually think there's a thing about when you play back-to-back games that are difficult, you're used to that tempo of game, especially against good teams. Yep. And I think that might help them as well. And then off the back of that, I think they'll get their act together. I think they'll see the finishing line and they'll be excited by that. I think Liverpool got a real shout of doing it because I think they can go and score goals.
I agree. I do think that they've got goals in the side. I still think there are times where you wonder if maybe during the international break, a couple of the players who didn't go away, it was like, cool, let's focus on your position, because it seems to be a couple of those players where it's like, we need to work on you rather than your Van Dijks and those kind of guys. So I see your point. I guess my issue with it is the reason Liverpool got top 4 last time was a header from a goalkeeper. That's really special. Great memory. And I remember watching that game live and being like, this is amazing. In the time, you go, this is great. Another Alisson header, and it's going to be.
Doesn't work like that, though.
Yeah, but
margins.
But again, these games that you've got, I think Liverpool can get a result against Man City. Whether that result's a win or a draw, it remains to be seen. Liverpool hosting Arsenal at Anfield only ever goes one way, and it's only going to go one way again. You see it in Arteta's psychology, or the way he talks when he talks about playing against Liverpool. He fears them, and if you can go and get a result against Arsenal, who will probably go on to win the Premier League, then there's no reason why Liverpool can't go on a run and finish in the 4th. Look at the front 6, or the players you've got available: Diaz, Gakpo, Salah, Nunes, Jota, Firmino. Incredible. And a couple of them are obviously going to go in the summer, but when you've got those options to pick from, and you can maybe make the midfield a little bit more resolute and solid and try not to get beat going that way, there's no reason why Liverpool can't go on the run.
I totally see your point. I guess mathematically I do feel like there are other teams who've got a slightly better run of things.
It's so up for grabs. It's amazing. Newcastle United, they've only lost 3 games in the Premier League this season. That's no other team's lost less games. Goals conceded, 19. No team's conceded less goals than them. And also in terms of XG as well, they've conceded 24.9 expected goals against. Only Man City have conceded less.
Too many
All those
draws.
things are great. I think the question I was going to put is I'm leading the witness here, but the thing that I'm struggling with Newcastle is not losing games. When you're at the top of the table, you've got to go out and win games. Mm-hmm. Do they have enough going forward to win enough games?
A draw is as much as a loss now. I think it's similar to, and maybe that's where Liverpool might have the edge, is
11 draws so far this season.
Yeah. I think that's where other teams might have the edge. They seem more win or lose, go for broke. Is there that go for broke element. Is Eddie Howe the manager that can do that? We've just seen him lose a cup final where didn't really go for broke in that either, even though that was very much do or die at that point.
And what's the truth as well with Newcastle? It's like, say Almiron's, all that great run of form. He's kind of used that turbo boost now. Like, what is the truth about this team? Is this team a top 8 side, or is it actually a Champions League side?
It's a team full of narrative. So you had the Almiron narrative. You had Joe Linton. He's changed position. He's incredible. He's out injured now. Oh, he's suspended now. And so I think they run out of steam, Newcastle. And as great as the story would be, ownership group aside, you'd really back it. You'd really be happy for Newcastle, especially in terms of their long-suffering fans, if they manage to finish in the top 4. But there is this thing, and I don't mean to disrespect Newcastle because they are a big club, but big club mentality when it gets into this running. I back teams like Spurs and I back teams like Liverpool when it gets tight and it gets...
You're backing Spurs?
More than Newcastle to finish in the top 4 because Newcastle just haven't been here before. And like you say, when it's do or die, Newcastle fans might leave St James's Park happy with a draw, whereas Spurs fans, Liverpool fans never leave Anfield or Tottenham Hotspur Stadium happy when they draw a game. And so that's a difference in mentality. I think that'll be different towards the end of the season.
Get that.
The team that I think will get very, very close here, I think they are a massive dark horse that, again, I think when you talk about that, the big club, the spotlight, Brighton don't get that, but Brighton currently in 7th. They play wonderful football.
Yeah.
They can beat the best teams.
Mm-hmm. They have beaten
the best teams.
Yeah.
I think the problem with them will be congestion as well in terms of like the FA Cup games and some tough teams as well when it comes to their running.
They do have a lot of the nasty ones. Like
Yes.
They've got a lot of the sides who are also going for top 4 or also going for the top league or trying to avoid relegation.
I'm intrigued to see if those teams actually suit Brighton a little bit. Everyone's seen about the tactics in terms of putting studs on the ball and allowing players to come in so that you can play around them. Yeah. I would imagine the arrogance, but the confidence of teams to go at the opposition. I think you certainly saw that with Liverpool. You might see that same thing where actually they might spring a surprise and get pretty close to it in terms of getting into that 4th spot.
Do you know the thing is,
what
as well,
stops them from doing it? Was my question.
I guess to add to that point, what stops them, I think, is just the fact that they've had a really good run of form more recently. There are going to be sides who are more expectant of De Zerbi ball. I think what De Zerbi brought to the league is where the league is kind of going. And so it's a progression of what, Klopp and Guardiola and all those other guys have laid down. People have had a bit of time now to think about that. They'll have had some ways of working out, how will we play Brighton? How do we shut these guys down? If they're going to play that 6 at the back and then try and play around us, there's going to be a way to counter that. And I'm waiting for that side they play in this run of games to sort of lay that blueprint down. Maybe it'd be too late to lay a blueprint, but that's kind of the point here. You expect it now with Brighton rather than it being like, Brighton.
Yeah. They've got to play all those teams around him aside from Liverpool, I think.
Yeah.
Well, they've got Brentford this weekend, which will be very interesting in terms of the clash of styles. But the thing, I don't think Brighton will finish in the top 4, but what's really impressed me is that in terms of Premier League teams, they probably had the most noise. New manager, then Trossard goes on exile and he gets disruption. Yeah. Caicedo, a bid comes in for him. All the noise with McAllister in terms of winning the World Cup, and they've just battered it away and just got results and gone about their business in such an impressive fashion. And I would love them to finish in the top 4, but I subscribe to big team mentality. I just don't think they have it at this point.
Imagine that stadium in the Champions League would be amazing.
And give everyone else a bit of hope as well. Like, go find good players. There's this is a low-scoring, high-variable game.
It's
you
got
go
a very
and find those guys.
Champions League kind of feel, though, the Amex. It sounds like a Champions League.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
De Zerbi's definitely got that sort of exotic look of like that beard is what I would. That is in the dictionary next to exotic. Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's that.
So, in a word, who will get 4th spot? I said it earlier. Liverpool for me.
Liverpool.
I believe so, Liverpool. But I think outside shout is Newcastle. And I think Spurs drop away. I just think there's too much there.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.